G'day, I'm Rob Larney, and this is Grown Man Speak. Real conversations for grown men who want more from life. Well, g'day, folks, and welcome to the very first episode of Grown Man Speak. I'm your host, Rob Larney. And on this podcast, we are going to talk all things men's development. We're also going to talk a little bit about my upcoming book, which is soon to be published, called The Gap, and what that's all about. First, let me introduce myself to you. As I said, my name is Rob Larney. I'm 59 years old, and I'm from Sydney, Australia. I'm a husband, I'm a father, I'm a grandfather, and I'm a bloke that's had, let's just say, a few struggles along the way. And it's those struggles, and it's what I learnt from those struggles, which was the inspiration behind me writing the book, The Gap. And so let's talk a little bit about what The Gap's about, what you can expect on the Grown Man Speak podcast. Look, this is only going to be a short episode. This is basically just to introduce myself to you, the listener. So let's go. This podcast exists because there's a lot of conversations that blokes are having quietly in their heads, in the car on the way home, lying awake at night, and they don't really have a place to land. And it's not because men don't want to talk, it's because we're often not sure how to talk about what doesn't feel quite right without turning it into advice, trying to fix something, or someone telling us what we should do next. One thing I want to get really, really clear here is this is not a self-improvement podcast. It's not motivation. It's not hacks, routines, or new ways to optimize your life. It's a place to slow things down enough to see clearly. Now, as I said before, I've just finished writing my book called The Gap, and this podcast exists because of that book. But it's not here to repeat it, explain it, or turn it into a program. The podcast is a place where ideas are allowed to stay open, when questions don't need immediate answers, and when conversation does more work than instruction ever could. The Gap at its core, it's not about fixing yourself. It's about recognizing the space between the life you're living and the life that you thought you should be living. It's about noticing patterns, how you move, how you respond, how you keep yourself busy, distracted, protected, or numb before trying to change any of it. The book or this podcast isn't here to tell you what to do. It's here to help you see what's been running your life from the shadows. It's a podcast for blokes that have already lived a bit, for blokes that have carried responsibility, held things together, blokes that have done what they were supposed to do and still have this quiet sense that something's not quite right. It's for blokes that have tried a lot of the self-help stuff that's out there. And as a bloke that spent many years consuming this stuff, there's a ton of shit out there designed to help the people peddling it way, way more than the people using it. So if you're looking for a quick fix, well, I guess this is probably not your place. If you're looking for someone to tell you how to live your life, it's not that either. But if you're open to sit with questions just a little bit longer, see what comes up when the urgency drops away, you might just feel at home. The Gap is due to be published a little bit later in the year, and this podcast gives those ideas a little bit of room to breathe, to talk about many of the subjects covered in the book. And there's really a cool story about how this book came to be, but we'll save that for another episode. The book, I suppose, will be a doorway. This podcast is an ongoing conversation. And over time, I'll explore themes from the book, talk through some questions that don't have clean answers, and occasionally bring in other voices into the room to share their experiences. But it won't be all about the book. We'll cover a lot more topics on men's development. Well, I suppose there's a question I should answer, and that is, what sort of authority have I got as an author and as a podcast host talk about this sort of stuff? And look, I'm going to be right up front. I have absolutely no formal qualifications whatsoever, other than I am a trade qualified horticulturist, but that doesn't really give me the authority to speak on these topics. What I have got, though, is many, many years of lived experience, and I'm not going to go into all the details here. We will share this over the life of the podcast, and I do touch on it in the book. But in 2012, my life took a dramatic twist, and basically I got, well, not even ground zero. I was severely in deficit, and I went through 3 really, really dark years before I started to rebuild. During that rebuild process, I tried a lot of stuff, but what I did do was document the progress, what worked, what didn't work, what I tried, what the results were. That became the thesis of not this book, but a book that I began to write originally. But I'm not going to go in there because that is part of the cool story that we're going to talk about in a later episode. So I guess what I'm saying in a very, very long-winded way of doing it is that I am qualified to talk about this because it is the road that I've traveled. Now, I'm not going to sit here and preach from the mountaintop and say I've got it all worked out. I'm going to be right up front and let you know that I am not a full-time author. I am not a full-time podcast host. I have a regular job like most other blokes out there, and I'm just doing my bloody best every day to try and make life a little bit better, to try and get to where I wanted to be. And I have made some immense progress in the last, I suppose, 12 to 13 years. And a lot of things that people said it was too late to do. I've managed to do them. So just to give you a little bit of context around this, my life went tits up when I was 47, 48 years old. And when you go tits up, I'm talking lose the house, lose the savings, be in debt, and have to start from scratch when 35 years worth of effort goes down the gurgler. And look, I'd like to say it was overnight, but it wasn't overnight. And we'll talk a little bit about my journey. But this podcast is not about me. It's about the road back. It's what I discovered on that road back. And that's exactly what it's all about, what I want to talk about, what I want to share with all you blokes. And I say blokes because this is intentionally a blokes podcast. Now, look, there's plenty of stuff out there for the ladies, and I don't begrudge that. And this is not being sexist, but this is, I suppose, a man's perspective. And let's face it, blokes, well, we think a little bit differently from the fairer sex. And like I said, I'm a husband, so I am not anti-women one bit, but it is a blokes podcast. That being said, the podcast and the book for that matter is all part of a larger body of work that I am presently building. And what I would really, really ideally like to do is build a community for blokes that need this stuff, a place where they can come together, talk about it, share ideas, and basically just support each other. So that is it's a huge goal for me to turn this. I'm gonna resist the urge to say movement, but into a community for blokes like me, for blokes like there's a ton of us out there that have things haven't turned out the way that we envisaged they would. But that's okay. That is part of life, and that's what we're here to explore. So, if you would like to become part of the Grown Man community, probably the easiest way to do that is to hit like on this podcast and save it to your favourites list. I'm not going to ask for a 5-star review just yet because I haven't really given you anything to review me on. But down the track, if you like what we speak about here, it would really, really help me to grow the podcast, grow the awareness around the work that I'm doing, and also grow the community. But the quickest way that you can become part of the Grown Man Speak community would be on Facebook. Just hop on over to Facebook, find Grown Man Speak. We've got a page there, but we also have a private community group. And I would urge you, if you want to talk to other blokes like me, blokes like yourself, that's going to be the place to do it. There's a whole lot of other stuff in the pipeline at the moment. There's a website being built. There's a whole lot of resources being built that you will be able to access as part of the Grown Man Speak community. So a ton of stuff happening. But that's it in a nutshell for me, guys. This was all about introducing Grown Man Speak to you, giving you a little bit of info on who I am and why I'm doing it, and to get this party started. So We will catch you on the next episode. Look, initially, I am going to release episodes fortnightly, where that will go down the track. Once I've got enough content there, we may go to a weekly schedule. But look, we'll play it by ear. I'm new to this podcast world. I hope some of what I've said here has landed with you, and I'm hope that you will stick around for episode 2 and beyond. And we'll catch you on the next episode of Grown Man Speak. Cheers, guys.